What's up, world? Thanks for jumping in for another ride. Today, we're going to service the K&N air filter on the 2016 Ford F-150. First step to servicing the K&N air filter is to open the hood. Now, the first step to the process to remove a K&N conical air filter on a K&N intake is to remove the hose clamps. And it's just a simple screwdriver or a 5/16 nut driver. I actually prefer a nut driver. It makes things much easier. And we'll go ahead and remove the filter. K&N has a large hose clamp around the base of it, so we're just going to use a 5/16 and get that loose. And I like to get the clamp fairly loose so that when I go to pull this off, I have some room around this rubber so that it'll flex. The filter's loose and it moves freely onto the mounting surface. I can unlatch the clamps. And at that point, I can pull the box up. And with the filter loose, it will slide right down into the box. And come out like so. Okay, so we're over at the sink, and before we get started with this K&N cleaning solution, I'm going to give you some quick background. I actually started using K&N products back as far as on a 1984 Chevy Blazer that I had, and this was probably somewhere in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, and it was just a round drop-in filter in the factory air filter housing. I actually started using my first K&N cold air intake on a brand new purchase 1994 Trans Am. And so 30 years of using K&N air filters, I've been through a lot of them. I've probably been through 20 or 25 different cold air intakes, probably been through another 50 or 60 air filter elements, something like that. So I've had a ton of experience with these filters. Now, the instructions from K&N are going to say something to the effect of you're going to take your cleaner and you're going to take your filter and you're going to start pumping. And you're going to sit over here and pump for 20 minutes. You're going to pump for so long that your fingers are going to get tired. And you're going to switch over and you're going to start using your thumb. And you're going to sit here and pump for another 20 minutes until you're sick of pumping. And this thing is half empty and this thing is barely soaked. So here's where I differ from the K&N instructions. Specifically for a conical filter, this is where my instructions and K&N's differ slightly. I'm going to take this and I'm going to set my filter and set it down in a 3-gallon bucket. You can use anything, a 2-gallon bucket, a great big old pot. You can use a dog bowl as long as you clean it out good. Whatever works. I'm going to take the cleaner. I'll take that off. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to put my finger over the end, and I'm going to start splashing this on there. I'm going to let that cleaner sit and run down that filter. With the filter in the bottom of the bucket, I'm going to start my water running. I'm going to let the water run through this filter until the water is up to the rubber portion on the filter, and I'm going to let it sit there for a minute. Once that cleaner and that water soaks in, I'm basically going to take the filter and I'm going to start turning it and agitating it just like if it was in a washing machine. As it sits and soaks and I wash it multiple times, I'm going to be doing other things. I'm going to be checking tire pressures, checking oil, changing oil, servicing transmission, whatever it is. I have other stuff to do. There's no sense in sitting here babysitting this air filter. So I'm going to let it sit there and soak. I'm going to rinse it. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to come back. I'm going to rinse it again. I'm going to repeat this process. So as far as any contaminants getting inside the filter, there should be nothing left inside that filter that you have to be concerned about after 4 or 5 times. This is definitely not in a hurry process, but K&Ns really aren't in a hurry process type of filter anyway, because you're going to have to sit around and let it dry. So if the only thing you're doing is your filter, could be wasting time. That's kind of a personal call, but that's my method, and it's much faster and much more economical than sitting there with that stupid spray bottle for 20 minutes and spraying it and then holding its hand under a water hose. As you can see, the contaminants in the air filter are already starting to break down. We've got an oil ring around the outside, and the water is extremely dirty. Once we have about that much water in it, you can see that the water is around the rubber edge. I'm just going to agitate it for a minute. Just like you would your washing machine. Now, I'm going to let it sit for a good 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to come back. I'm going to repeat the process. Just to clarify, I do not have any direct relationship with K&N air filters. Myself or this channel are not sponsored in any way by K&N air filters. I have just purchased a lot of K&N air filters over the years out of my own pocket. I've had a lot of experience when it comes to messing with cars, playing around with cars, working on hot rods, things like that. And this is the method that I have come up with for Canon conical filters. If you don't believe that this method works, if you don't believe that this is effective, I'll put a link up on the screen and I'll put a link down in the description below. At the end of this video, you're more than welcome to click on that link and check it out. This is the exact way that I've serviced the air filter on my 2016 Ford F-150 over its lifespan of 107,000+ miles. And at this point, I've had absolutely no issues. So if you have any doubts, again, check out the video. We're going to do our first flush. And the easy way to do this, pull your filter out, and you can see that the water is very dirty. I'm actually going to dump the water outside so that we don't stop up the sink. Second wash, the exact same method as the first. So at this point, we're probably somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes into this. Not a ton of time. Colin and I had actually worked on a couple of things while this set. And now, I'm going to let that cleaner soak in just a couple of minutes. And go ahead and start running our water right back through it. And you can see the contaminants coming off on my gloves. One of the things that you can do is you can kind of hold the filter up and let that water run through it. Already the water isn't anywhere near as bad as it was the first round. This is our fourth cleaning, and you can see from our initial cleaning that the water is much cleaner this time. So I believe this is where we're going to stop with the wash process. And what I'm going to do just to make sure everything is extremely clean, there's no contaminants that got inside the filter, anything like that. Now's the time I'm just going to start running clean water over this and just make sure everything comes off. And you can see that that water is much cleaner than when we started. We got a few little pieces of debris floating around in there. The water still has a little bit of the pink color from the oil, but initially the water was basically black when we got through. So I think this is going to be plenty satisfactory for us to get this thing put back together. And I'm going to go dump the water, and I will meet you around at the back of the truck. Okay, so we got our filter clean. You can see that it still has a pink color to it because of the staining from the oil. But other than that, it's really clean. No contaminants, no dust, no debris stuck in the pleats, anything like that. So at this point, we're going to keep it really simple. No crazy dance, no slinging the filter out, nothing like that. I'm literally just going to set this on a piece of cardboard on the tailgate of the truck, and I'm going to come back when it's dry. Pretty straightforward. In a couple of hours, we've been in the shop, and I actually didn't even bother setting the air filter outside because it's so humid out there. We were expecting some storms to come through. So we've just literally set it on the back of the tailgate, and Colin and I have done an oil change on the truck. We have actually stopped and ate lunch. So we've just kind of wasted some time. So a couple, 3 hours, something like that. And at this point, it's dry. So you can actually see where the water had soaked into the cardboard, and there is no more water. So we are good to go. And we didn't have to do any crazy slinging it around or beating it on anything or just nothing like that. Nature just dried the water up. It's kind of crazy. At this point, we are ready to oil it, and we're just going to use our air filter oil. And this is as straightforward as it gets. I like to just stay right in line with the pleats and go ahead and just make straight passes all the way across it and roll the conical filter as I do this instead of moving the can around to chase it. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and get this thing oiled up. At this point, once I've kind of gone over it, what I'm really looking for is any inconsistencies in the red color, and anything that looks like it's not really soaked in with a red color, I'm obviously going to go back over it and just kind of touch it up. For now, I'm just going to let this sit here for a few minutes, let the oil soak in really good. Probably won't take 5 minutes. I'm just going to give it a few minutes just to sit here. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and wipe up all this excess because I don't want it all over the filter as we're letting this sit here and we're working it around on this cardboard. Okay, so a few minutes have gone by, and you can see that we got a couple of little light spots here, nothing crazy. If you see any light spots, I'm definitely not going to use near as much oil as I did the first time, so I'm just going to really go light, fill in any of those spots. At this point, that's more than enough oil to take care of this filter, and what I like to do at this point, once I know that all the pleats and the element has enough oil in it, I'm going to go through and I'm going to wipe up any excess that I can get with a lint-free cloth. I'm going to wipe inside, outside. I'm going to wipe across the pleats. I'm going to wipe the front of it. I'm going to wipe all the mounting surfaces. I'm going to soak up everything that's excess that I possibly can. I've about wiped up any excess that this has that I can get up, and you can see that there's not a lot of oil on this rag, which means that the oil is inside of the filter element, which is where we want it. So at this point, we're about ready to reinstall the filter. The last thing that I like to do is use the sealing grease on the inside of the filter element, and that just helps keep a good tight seal. And additionally, when we get ready to pull this back off to service it again, it comes off easily and it's not stuck to the plastic intake tubing. So I'm going to wipe just a little bit of grease on the inside of this. And this is super easy. I'll put a couple of spots, maybe 3 or 4. And go ahead, spread that out as thin as I can really get it. If you can see that on camera, that is pretty thin layer of grease on there. And that will keep it from sticking and make sure that we have a good seal all the way around the tubing. And so let's go get this thing reinstalled. Well, now that we've gotten our intake track and our box all cleaned back up, and we actually went ahead and vacuumed out the bottom portion of the air intake box, we can go ahead and put our filter on. Like so. I like to take the hose clamp and turn it so that it's pointing straight up, so that I can take a nut driver or a very small 1/4 inch drive with a 5/16 on it, and I can hold it in position so I can get to it easily, and it's easy to tighten up. So I hope you can see this. I don't know if you can because it's really in a tight area, but I like to keep it so that I can reach straight down to that 5/16 and tighten it up. And at that point, bottomed out. Now to put the air intake box back together, it just has some tabs on the back side. I just need to slide those down in there. At that point, the back side is in place, and then I'm going to reattach the clips. So that's my simple process that I've developed over the years to recharge or to service a K&N conical air filter. So I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you got some good information out of it. Or I really appreciate you hanging out all the way to the end if you just enjoyed hanging out in the shop with me. Really appreciate you watching. Please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and as always, jump in for another ride.